And we'll give folks a minute to get in and get settled also. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning on behalf of NESHCO. I'm Paul Fahey, Vice President with Smith & Jones. We're a healthcare marketing consultancy serving clients mostly east of the Mississippi. So thank you for joining us today on our topic of how automated content helped Bellevue Women's Hospital deliver more babies. For those of you that are watching this on demand, this is being recorded on November 30th, 2023. I mention that because some of the, software things have changed, trends might change, the data and statistics might change. So for those of you that are joining us live, welcome, nice to see you. And for those of you watching on demand, just wanted to create that context. So with that, I'll get started. A quick introduction about us. You should be able to see my slides up on screen right now. So hi, I'm Paul. We've been members of NESHCO for a number of years, our organization. Like I said, I'm one of the vice presidents with the firm, and with my colleagues, Joanne Latham, Lisa Barone, Katie Source. Really happy to represent a lot of the work that they and we have done for this particular case study. We also, in addition to loving producing these kind of and hosting and sharing content on these kind of webinars, we published a book, our second edition of Under the Influence, which was an anthology of best practices. We have our Navigating the New Normal, which was our 2023 trends report. We've just released on the right, you'll see the 2024 trends report. We're calling 24 the year of disruption. So you may know us from not only NESHCO, but also MASHMED. We're involved in SHISHMED, all the meds, mostly on the East Coast, but also now HITMIC and SWAY. And wanted to again acknowledge all the work that I'm going to share today is really building on what my colleagues, Lisa Barone is the head of our brand for a lot of our clients. Katie Source heads up a lot of content. Joanne Latham does strategy and a senior account management. So I just wanted to share that I'm representing a lot of work that they and we had done in this case study. So let's roll. How did automated content help Bellevue deliver more babies? So I'll give a little context first and then go through very much a in-depth case study. So why does labor and delivery matter? At least from a marketing standpoint and at least for a hospital or health system. So we've worked with hundreds of hospitals, health systems, CDC, governments, domestic and abroad. And one of the things we've learned from a patient perspective is there are three service lines that are very important key drivers for patient satisfaction or perception of quality: cancer, cardiac, and labor and delivery obstetrics. Do well in those areas, and that'll carry a halo effect to any place else within the organization in general. So we'll talk a bit about what Bellevue Women's Hospital had done, and our goals and what we hope that you'll take away from this over the next hour is why this service line matters. Really looking at a very patient-centric, patient-relevant approach to the content that we had created. Looking at the content strategy, and then how we rolled this out in a very, very measurable way. So we'll take you through that entire case study, from what did we learn, to the brand, to the communication tactics, and everything else. I've got a few screens up between my slides, a dashboard that I'll show in a bit, and the chat. So I'll try to keep an eye on that. If you've got questions, drop them in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. And I'll try to pay attention to those and answer in real time or save a few minutes at the end. All right, so some background and context, and wanted to note that we're sharing this obviously with our NESHCO folks that are outside of any competitive set. There aren't folks that are watching this that really butt up against Ellis for their market share. So to give you a little sense of where Ellis Medicine is, they're located in Schenectady, New York, and that's in New York's capital region, which is that Albany, Schenectady, Troy, Saratoga area. On the map to the left, you'll see where that is. On the map on the right, what I've done was taken that, surrounding several counties. Ellis is here in blue, if you can see my cursor. There are some other hospitals in yellow that represent other brands that are in the market. St. Peter's Health Partners and Albany Medical Center. These are kind of the big three, although Ellis now has a relationship with St. Peter's. So there's really, two or three key, healthcare providers at that large institutional hospital level. You'll see some population density, the darker red, on the left, you'll see the city of Schenectady. At the bottom, you'll see Albany, top right, Troy, and up to the North Country is Saratoga. So essentially, I just wanted to create that context for who Ellis is, where they are, and even, they're one of the Davids against a number of Goliaths. They're about 2,500 full-time employees compared to Albany Med at 14,000, St. Peter's at 12,000. So this is very much a David and Goliath, kind of story as well. How can we outsmart instead of outspending the competition? So happy to share some of these strategies, and I hope this is relevant for folks watching as we go through. So that's Ellis Hospital. But in particular, what we're talking about today is Bellevue, which is a freestanding women's hospital health center, also located in Schenectady. It's the only one of its kind in the capital region, and pretty unique to have a women's hospital, a dedicated facility. That presents some really unique opportunities from a branding standpoint. And as you can imagine, the size of some of these other organizations, there is a level of, comfort, the ability to navigate through the system. Many people like an organization that they kind of wrap their arms around, get to know the employees, and not feel like they're part of a, machine per se. So the campaign goals that Bellevue had created or set out for us, as we went through the initial briefing, we know we want to raise awareness to women and families in New York's capital region. Help us develop a campaign that really focuses specifically on labor and delivery. How do we position Bellevue as that best of both worlds experience for families? It's high tech and high touch. We're a natural birthing center experience, but we also have advanced medical care where and when it might be needed. And the call to action, very often it's not self-guided. Women will have relationship with their primary care physician, their OBGYN. So we wanted to acknowledge that relationship and have them partner up, with a consumer pull-through, kind of taking a page out of the pharmaceutical playbook, ask your doctor about Bellevue. And then scheduling a tour, one of the things that we've known and learned over the years is that's really essential. And we'll talk about a very patient-centric approach, not only to the communication, but that entire experience through labor and delivery. Part of that, we've learned that early in the process, my OBGYN might have privileges at a number of different institutions, and I'll kind of go where he or she guides me in some cases. But at the end of the day, I want to get a comfort level for that. And so very much like college admissions, scheduling a tour, getting to know the facility, meeting some of the people, kind of soaking up what's the energy like, is very important to that process. So that was a key call to action as part of our brand campaign. So first, a little bit about the brand itself and the brand that we created, or the sub-brand for Bellevue, before we get into some of the strategies and tactics. We always feel it's important, wherever possible, to do as much market analysis, way beyond just that simple slide looking at market position or population, but we have some good data. Sometimes it's years old, just based on New York State's systems and our ability to access it. But really, what's the market share like? Who's doing what? What do people think about other brands? If we can host not only focus groups and things like that, do a competitive audit. What are other organizations doing and saying and spending in the marketplace? And then having a lot of very important conversations with staff, with former patients, with current patients, patients that went to other institutions, whether those are one-on-ones or focus groups. We feel like that context is really important and helps inform the brand and positioning statement. This is not about us locking Lisa and Katie in the closet and saying, don't come out until you've got something really clever. But really, we think there's a lot of value to driving this from within. If your institution doesn't have the deep resources to be able to do a lot of this, very often these can be done semi-formally. Can we meet with a handful of folks? Can we have some conversations with people? Make referrals to other patients. It's just really good content, and very often what the public might say about you, it's their brand perception, offers a lot of value. So on the basis of that, we went into and started building out that framework for the brand. And you can apply this to any service line you might be working with for your institution, answering those questions. Who are we? What do we do? How do we do it? What are our values? What do we believe? And what are the attributes to that? What does it feel like? So Bellevue Women's Center, we offer the best possible birth experience and healthcare options for women of all ages and all of life's moments. Keep in mind, this campaign was narrowly focused on labor and delivery, but that is really Bellevue Women's Hospital. How do we do it? A very family-centered approach, a very patient-centric approach backed by advanced care options. And that's all we do. And that's a really powerful point of differentiation in the claim. If that's all we do it better. What we believe is that women deserve high-quality choices, personalized care, very family-centered experiences, and of course, healthy outcomes. So the brand attributes, not only for the organization, what we feel when we see them and meet with them and observe them, and what we wanted to convey in the communication was something very, again, family-centered, but compassion, caring, respectful, excellent, and innovative. These might be overused words in our world of marketing, but certainly I think, as we look at respectful and family-centered, those are keys to what you'll start to see in some of the subsequent slides that we've got. So that's a bit of the brand itself, the brand framework, and all of that rolled up into a great sort of campaign theme, headline, slogan that Lisa had penned a number of years ago called "We Deliver." And that, we felt was really powerful, and again, it seems almost obvious on some level that a labor and delivery campaign would have the word deliver in it. But essentially, there were so many meanings to this, and it was such a scalable phrase that when we heard this in the boardroom, as we were all kind of whiteboarding and sharing ideas, we loved it. We loved it for its internal value, or internal relevance. Every day, each of us comes to work, whether you work in food service, your direct clinical care, landscaping, whatever it is, you deliver your best, you deliver on what's expected of you. But more important, for our patients, they have a set of expectations, and we want to deliver on those. We want to know what those are, and they're as individual as each patient. So we want to get to know our patients, we want to know what their expectations and hopes are, and we want to deliver on that. And that's a very bold promise. And you'll start to see in the next few slides, I think I've got, yes. So that became, in some cases, the tagline, where the punctuation, as we lead with a headline here, and again, this is where you're going to start to see very patient or family-centric communications, and a headline that leads with what matters to you. Clearly from the imagery, you see that this is a woman that's expecting, but what matters to her and what matters to you, the reader, whatever that is, we deliver on that. And here we've got very simple, quick body copy, delivery options, pain management, a great playlist, your birth plan honored, advanced 24/7 care team. What matters to you? Is it on that list? Is it something else? Whatever it is, we deliver. Bellevue Women's Center. Schedule your tour today, and then a unique tagline, URL of BellevueDelivers.com. So again, we wanted to carry through that message of we deliver, but a very patient-centric, inform and educate them with some, and this became sort of an anchor piece for the campaign, but carry that through. No deep body copy. We don't have to worry about writing this and running it through Hemingway to find out if it's at the right literacy levels. This is a pretty basic message. We think it's warm and inviting, educates the consumer, empowers this patient, and all with that, call to action and driving folks to Bellevue Delivers, and we think that starts to, generate the conversation, create some interest. There was a companion to this, similar piece and a similar layout with a different list: natural birth, that epidural, moving during labor, NICU and OB doctors on-site 24/7, doing it your way. What matters to you, we deliver. BellevueDelivers.com. So those became sort of anchor pieces, maybe a bit of a mood board, or that magnetic north for the rest of the campaign, magnetic north for the rest of the campaign. And we had a number of different ads and posters that were part of that whole series, whether these were, and you'll start to see how they became repurposed into that entire, patient journey. But I think it's important to acknowledge, and what I'll start to share in the next few slides, is understanding what that patient journey is and taking not only a segmented approach to our communication, but following that prospective patient, not just through patient acquisition, but really through labor and delivery itself and even postpartum. And you'll start to see how we also went beyond a one-size-fits-all communication approach. We know that we can't hyper-target every single ad and message to each unique patient, but where we can, through email communication, through where we put different types of ads, we wanted this to be as relevant as possible, and started to create a set of personas to really identify what matters to each of these different personas. What do we know about first-time moms? What do we know about second-time moms? What do we know about their partners? And what are their needs and wants? What matters to them? And that was all part of the content strategy that we had built out in this campaign. There were a lot of other materials here, just kind of sharing a few other examples of things that we put out into the marketplace in terms of just celebrating events, or driving people to education and support classes and things on that. So that'll bring me to the next section, which is the content strategy. We started building out a bit of that brand personality or persona for Bellevue itself, and really thinking about the brand beyond just the institution, and really thinking about the brand as almost a persona, and something we had called that trusted confidant. And this was really powerful as we started to roll this out internally. We wanted staff to know, this is who we are. This is who you are. This is what we learned and heard from you folks, why you come to work every day, what your patients rely on you for. So the notion that, this is not just an institution with operating hours and doctors that have degrees from X institutions, or anything as clinical as that, although those are fabulous proof points. We really knew that if we started positioning Bellevue as, and I won't read this word for word, but paraphrasing, having the brand come across and be the voice of almost like a friend that you feel comfortable sharing private matters, biggest fears, want to confide in, because there's a sense that, like you might ask somebody who's been there before you, you've seen this before, you've been through it, you're not going to judge me by dumb questions. And that I want to do things maybe in a way that might be different than what you did. You're not a one-size-fits-all friend that's going to tell me, well, this is how I did it and this is how you should do it. We wanted the patient to feel confident in their womanhood and know that they could get answers from this trusted confidant, but also be able to share information with other folks. We wanted this to be the kind of content that could be passed along. So we wanted Bellevue to feel like the person people trust and the one that we look to guide us, and somebody who's gone before us. And so it was important as we not only created the look and feel that you saw on some of the previous slides, but even some of the content that you'll see in some of the subsequent slides. That was the tone of voice. That was the brand. That was the brand and positioning. And again, when you think back to, and we have an entire 80-slide deck of competitive audits and analysis, as we looked at what the other competitors were saying, it was very much like those, picture of happy employees with a headline that we offer a service like labor and delivery, and we are caring and compassionate, and they are on many levels. We just felt like they were missing an opportunity to be very patient-centric, and also speak in a way that's not that clinical, area of expertise, per se. So this was the persona we wanted, and this became, again, that magnetic north for the entire type of, materials that you'll start to see on the subsequent slides. So with that, let me move forward. The personality traits of that brand, and again, this is about the institution. This is how we wanted Bellevue to be positioned. knowledgeable. You're not a know-it-all. We didn't want to come across as too academic or condescending or too scholarly in that, sense of people pursuing scholarly things. We know that there's this spectrum of folks that are very empowered. We used to call them the Murphy Browns, that strong character that was very strong-willed and took control of every aspect of her life. And there's also, at the other end of the spectrum, folks that are intimidated by the process or want to put all their faith in their healthcare provider. You're the one that went to medical school. You tell me where to go and I will follow. So we did want to come across as knowledgeable, that we have a lot of content and we have a lot of thoughts that we want to share. We're here to answer a question and point you in the right direction. Certainly caring. We wanted people to feel confident about their bodies, their babies, their choices. We wanted them to feel very comforted. We know that for many folks, whether it's a first time or mom going through this again, we wanted you to feel less alone, more comfortable through a set of shared experiences and communities. And we're there for women, no matter what you want. What matters to you matters to us. Tell us. We don't have it a certain way. We don't do it a specific way. If you want to give birth naturally, or know what your options are for pain management. We've heard a lot of stories that I felt like I was talked into an epidural, or I wanted a water birth, or I wanted a home experience. And, people were talking about that in they felt like they were being pushed in a particular direction rather than having their needs really embraced as much as possible. And also, recognizing this is not always about the mom to be, but their families around them, and supporting men in their lives, was also part of that journey. And we'll talk about that a little bit. So those content modes, as we took that persona, we really wanted to make sure that whatever we were putting out, greeted folks, educated them through these life moments. But through these different modes, we wanted to obviously raise awareness for the service line and be top of mind and have them, come to us. But building trust, personalizing their experience, and really just be there with content that would either comfort them, educate them, inspire them, or remind them that they're part of a community, or invite them into this community, whether it's within the hospital or other types of groups. So all the content that we had created, whether we were pushing them out through simple digital ads, social media, deeper engagement on email marketing, which you'll see in a moment, all of it wanted to check at least one or some of these boxes. And certainly during an entire journey, if we were catching folks, early in their planning process, discovering that they were pregnant through labor and delivery and postpartum, we wanted to make sure that during that entire journey that we covered all four aspects of this content, somewhere often throughout that entire time frame. So those four different modes, certainly comfort. We understand women maybe coming to this website or conversations with us, a little off balance, uncertain, fearful, anxious, surprised. We wanted to be very reassuring and let them know we get it, we understand you, we're here to help. Education, is really something we wanted to go beyond just the academic. We have information, you may want to absorb it, but breaking down what can be confusing, scary, personal women's health issues. And we really wanted that to be, very empowering. To the next slide. So we wanted visitors to our site and reading our email and engaging on our social media to feel smarter, but also empowered, really inspired to face what lies ahead, whether it's creating a birth plan or who to trust and help delivering their baby wherever they're at in that empowerment spectrum, wherever they want to be on that. And then really what separated a lot of the content on our site and in our social platforms is that we're in a woman's backyard. We're quite literally here. We understand what it's like to raise families in the capital region. But we wanted to instill that sense of community because we found that women wanted to connect with other women in the region and learn from and hear from and be a part of that. So again, elaborating on those four different content modes, that brought us to a set of personas. So we created this kind of fictional representation of these audiences, and we built out four different personas. Now, this was much easier to put out through retargeting or put out through email marketing. You'll see a mix of, content that's put out sort of broadly to the general public, trying to, identify with folks that might be expecting or somewhere in that journey. But as we captured that data, we learned more about them, we built out a set of personas. So we have 4 different categories: this expectant mother, new mother, partner, or a couple trying to conceive. So I'll go through those in the next couple slides here. And I won't read word for word. A lot of this content will be available. If you're watching on demand, feel free to pause. If you're in the audience here with me live, we will be sharing these slides with everybody that had registered. But as we thought about these personas, and again, we wanted to be as relevant as possible, not a one-size-fits-all content strategy. Okay, first-time mothers, well, there's expected and unexpected. All right, this was a bit unexpected, so I'm anxious about having my first child. Maybe I just wasn't ready. I hadn't been reading up on it. I don't have all the knowledge I might have had, and I need a trustworthy source. I might feel alone and isolated. I wasn't planning on having a baby, so how do I factor all this into every aspect of my life? We know what moment 0 is, when she's missed her period, taking maybe an in-home pregnancy test or something. And so the questions we wanted to anticipate, how do I handle this emotionally? What's next? What other tests do I need? What do I need to be, successful as a mom? The other persona and subset of first-time mother is that expected. I want to know everything I can. I might have been a little bit more knowledgeable. I want to do this my way. I want to know what my options are to customize pregnancy and be able to balance all of that. I'm actively trying to conceive. I might even feel pressure to be a mom. My friends are starting families, whatever that could be. And so again, anticipating those questions. And a lot of this is what Lisa and Katie and Joanne and I kind of gleaned during a lot of our market research and conversations with, and even the life experience that a lot of people on our team have had. But understanding, when I'm in this stage, or when I am identified with this persona, what do I want to know? When do I want to know it? And in this case, those typical questions were, nutritional and how to become pregnant as fast as possible, and classes, and what do I ask when I go on a tour, and how do I balance work and motherhood, et cetera. So those were the subsets of the first-time mother, expected and unexpected. Second-time mom, and now I've got to figure out how do I add a second child to the household, and relationships with my partner and other children in the household. How will this pregnancy be different? What's new and what's changed? How do I make sure this one goes the way that I want it, depending on what my first experience was like? And again, that moment 0, reading about this, kind of learning more about it, nearing the due date, feeling anxious about labor, and again, anticipating those questions with our content. I might want to know, just as I'm thinking about, building my family, do I want age differences between my kids? And I know from personal experience, my goodness, having 2 of them in college at the same time, what a treat that was. So what's that age difference between kids? How do I keep, my current child, help my current child accept the new child? VBAC, vaginal birth after C-section. Will I have more difficult labor than last time? What to expect, the second time around? So again, getting to know what were those tension points, what are the moments we want to reach these folks? What's the kind of content we can anticipate based on everything we've learned and we've experienced? All of that kind of goes into those personas and informs our content strategy. Partners, might want to learn, how can I be there for my partner? Does she have the resources she needs? How can I be there for the baby? My moment 0 would be that learning my child or my partner was pregnant, or knowing that we're actively trying to have a child. So, to support her on this journey, what are the signs my partner might be pregnant? How can I be supportive? How do I help plan for it? What's my role in this? What resources exist for me? So to the extent that this, persona is relevant, we wanted these partners to be able to have this kind of content also. So going through automation. So I'll talk about that entire digital journey. And again, it's really important, we found, not just to be putting out ads to call us or come in for a tour and sign up and we got you on the schedule and we confirmed that your OBGYN has privileges here. But we really wanted to think about that entire journey. Folks might be thinking far ahead, as they're planning for pregnancy, or they might be wanting to, might be learning as they're at one of these different stages in the personas. So we wanted to consider, before, during, after that entire process, and how can we nurture folks throughout that entire thing. So I'll take you through, again, now it becomes the things that the public and patients might be seeing more often, the things we might recognize that I shared a few slides ago. So based on that brand that I shared, based on that brand personality that we created for Bellevue, and based on an understanding of these different personas, trying to avoid that one-size-fits-all content strategy, what does that journey look like for folks? We had a mix of owned and paid and earned media. So, the owned media that we have through search, and being ranked well for keywords on SEO and things, social media, email, direct mail, and the hospital, we own all of this. And many of you that have seen us presented before know that we don't always own everything on our, social platforms either. We're only ever really renting Facebook users. Facebook creates the community. We have a little hub there, but if Facebook goes away, what happens to all those communities we've built up? So as much as possible, we own our own websites. We know folks are typing in keyword phrases. We want them to, arrive at our site, and there we can educate, we can nurture, we can own them through our own email software and all the metrics that are, presented there. But we also had a significant paid component on social media, display, retargeting, search, and then PR. We don't talk about that too much here, but wherever possible, we wanted to get their folks out there as content experts and all of that. So walking through those different tactics, paid social media, we had a lot of social targeting early, and I know Facebook had made a lot of changes on this with regard to their lookalike policies, audience policies, but essentially, where we had lists, we could create lookalike audiences earlier. It's a little different now, but between that and interest-based targeting, we could start to capture that kind of activity. And this was a campaign that launched in 2021, continues through to this date. But any of those interest areas that you see listed there, we started to identify, and through social media, we could learn, okay, how many people in the capital region, and this is roughly about a third, had some level of interest on social media for these various topics. And this is roughly about a third of the population of that, larger area. It's about 1.5 million when you capture the whole sort of region. So on social media, we had a lot of content. You'll start to see that the imagery was here. But we start to tease out, if a personalized birth experience, or we described us as a personalized birth center, experience meeting advanced medical care. It's all about mom at the region's premier women's center. Here we start to talk about breastfeeding, infant CPR skills and support. We have classes. Here it's just, call to action for general awareness. Here we wanted to encourage folks to schedule a tour, and go through there. So we had, this content strategy at the broadest level. Also at a pretty broad level, the display targeting. So we use the Google ads, create lookalike audiences, on emails, wherever we could. And then targeting users who had also visited our site within the last 30 days, through remarketing, and then also custom intent audiences that we could build based on SEO and search phrases. So again, we had a sense of what the depth of those audiences were like. We were very heavy. I think search is probably one of the key areas that, if you've got minimal resources to invest, intent-based search is, really, really important. It's where you're going to reach folks that in that moment are, looking for that kind of information. The display ads, again, had that mix of what matters to you. We deliver Bellevue Women's Center, and, a more sort of expanded headline level birth center experiences meet advanced medical care. Became part of what those digital and display ads were that were part of that mix. So I mentioned search, heavily utilized for lead gen. It allowed us to serve ads to new moms and families, searching out these kind of services or related contents. We bid on keywords related to pregnancy, motherhood, infants, and brought folks to a specific landing page with a very hard conversion. So where possible, ebooks, signing up for newsletters, and again, from our metrics, and I'll share an actual dashboard with you in a moment. This is where a lot of the leads came from. We put a lot of the budget in here. It's intent-based. You're not typing in the phrases because you're bored. You clearly have an interest in that moment on that. And that became pretty powerful. I'm going to skip over the TV commercial for a second. We had a 30-second, which if I have time, I'll play it at the end, but a pretty standard approach. It was a mix of a little bit of custom with a little bit of stock video. 30 seconds, we put it out. And again, cable allowed us a very, forgive the pun, surgical approach where we could find content and, advertise either on shows specifically or networks that had better demographic targeting in there. The other thing that we did also, we're looking at a number of different key OB/GYN offices in our region. And the image on the right should look pretty familiar. What do people do when they're sitting in a waiting room? They're on their phones. So let's geofence a lot of those, either support and keep sustaining a bit on the physicians that are referring patients to us. But for those physicians that have privileges, we would want to make sure, and maybe they're not referring as many folks to us, we wanted to geofence their offices, and find a number of those different places to basically say, you and your doctor know best, ask your doctor about Bellevue. So again, we're not trying to drive a wedge, but get these folks to partner up. And here we're catching them in that moment, quite literally, where, this topic is extremely relevant and we wanted to put Bellevue top of mind in that as well. Also, again, within the last couple of years, a lot of this geo-targeting rules have been changing in terms of how narrow can or should you get to stay HIPAA compliant. I think that could be, sorry, I just skipped over here. That could be its own 2-3 hour webinar, symposium, summit on how to remain HIPAA compliant. But I wanted to share some of the strategies that we had initially launched with and acknowledge that it's been changing over the last couple of years, and pretty often. I know many of our organizations are appropriately very HIPAA sensitive, risk averse. So happy to sidebar with you folks and share what we've learned about how to do that as best as possible. So again, taking that digital journey, those last few things you saw were pretty broad. We're either catching you hopefully in the waiting room at your OB/GYN's office, or you've seen our content, you're typing it in, whatever it is, you're pushing to our website. So we had a chance to update the landing page for the site itself, for Bellevue specifically, opportunity to watch videos. And here, and I don't have this preloaded, but these drop downs, I am, allowed us to say first-time mom, expectant mother, second-time mom, partner, and I want to do these kind of things. What are the different actions that we would want to take? Let's not overwhelm them with too much content up front. Let's try to catch them at the brand level with the video where possible. We certainly wanted an integration with the headline and what they might have seen so they know they've arrived in the right place, but then help them on their journey, identifying with who are you and what do you want to do, and let us help get you there. We want to make that process as clean and as simple as possible. And we believe, kind of like your Apple experience, if it's extremely simple, you're going to have a simple but not simplistic. You'll have maybe a higher degree of confidence rather than being overwhelmed and expected to read pages and paragraphs, of content. Also on the site, was the opportunity to download, kind of a questionnaire. Let's create your birth plan. Let's put your name in here, everything else. What's your due date? What are your delivery methods and your expectations? Talk to me about pain management. Let's talk about that delivery experience. Again, many folks may or may not know. They might be relying on experience from their parents, from those different generations before them that might not have realized, I can bring my own playlist into this and I can control the lighting. I might feel intimidated by well, wait, you guys are doing important work here and I don't want to interrupt your workflow. How do I plan to feed my baby? What are the classes I might be interested in? Who are the support people that are in my life? Let's talk about fetal monitoring or any other notes. Really, really powerful tool get to know what your options are, be empowered, and really answer that question, what matters to you? This is your birth plan and we want to help you through it. And this was really key content in as part of that whole workflow. So as folks arrive at the site, as they self-identify, they sign up for our newsletters, they download this content, essentially we want to know what they want to receive information about. We don't want to spam either. We don't want to be like, great, we got your email address. Here comes 6 million emails, and good luck ever getting rid of us. If you've ever made a donation to a political party, sorry, totally jumped ahead here. If you've ever made a donation to a political party, you'll know how difficult that is to get off of a list once you've been on it. So, just getting a sense of what do you want to, learn about, tell us about your needs, your birth plans, and in particular, what's that due date? And that would help us understand where you're at in that journey. Either I don't have one yet, or I think I know when, or roughly when. So we would look through and started building out really good, list management, subscriptions, and figuring out how can we put people into those different, where would they fit best into those different personas based on their answer to the type of information, their due dates, first or second time, what's their experience, et cetera. So those are the custom fields, due date, birth date, maybe you want to refer a partner to be included in this. All of that really helped us start to organize a lot of this dynamic content and analysis. So I'm inside about 20 minutes, only about another 10 or 12 more slides. It gets a little dense after this in terms of some charts and diagrams, but I'll just share them with you for, a general sense of, what we created. And again, feel free to go back and download and read kind of word for word as you're going through. So again, based on what we have for people, when you've come to the site itself, you're putting in first name, last name, et cetera. Do we, tell us about your partner, tell us about those due dates, all of that was really helpful for us to start to personalize everything. And we felt like, hello, Eileen, let's really tailor everything we can and made it as one-to-one as possible, in that entire experience. And I think that was very important, not a very budget intensive process, but just having the information on that form, personalizing it, and perhaps pulling content in based on how and where they would fit into that entire process. This can be done pretty simply and somewhat manually through things like Constant Contact. If you've got, some of the Salesforce Health Cloud or HubSpot, things like that, it becomes a little bit easier to manage some of this dynamic content and nurture folks no matter where they go through that process. But I don't want to create the impression that this is only for, large affluent institutions, because this wasn't necessarily. So that type of workflow, we had a couple different, pieces of content, where we can create those nurture email streams over that time period based on your persona, your starting point, your due date. And then we might have just a general newsletter subscription with, news information, maybe dated information. There's an activity or an event or whatever. So we have welcoming messages, for either parents or expecting moms, expectant mother, expected partner, are you new mother, where are you at in that whole process? And started to build out those entire sort of automated workflows in our email stream. Again, these are pretty standard drip campaigns that can be set up to flow through that. So for instance, this new mother workflow starts with that landing page in the form. Here's my email, here's who I am, my baby's birth date, and my partner's email if I want to provide it. And I'm interested in, whoops, let me go back, sorry. And I'm interested in classes and resources. So great, we send out the email invitation and we have this sequence of, welcome, here's this intro to resources, and let's talk to you about postpartum support, and then another email about lactation and self-care and returning to work. All of those kind of go through those different journeys, and all of it time sensitive based on and set up based on, again, what those due dates would be through that process. We built out those sequences that you just saw, and even for that expectant mother sequence, okay, I'm pregnant, now what? We have another email called preparing for baby and hospital tours, when to go, what to ask, let's talk labor, welcome the baby in 4th trimester, et cetera. We had this entire thing as we were going through there, we were calling the fourth trimester, that ninth month plus. So the emails would start to look like this on the side. And again, wanted it to be branded with the same color palettes, coming from the institution itself, but welcome to Bellevue. And so we had that, welcoming message. You're in, congratulations on your pregnancy. We're here for you. And, for example, hi, first name persona, or first name personalized, wowza, things are about to get interesting. So again, we wanted that content written in very plain language, very conversational tone. If you think back to earlier in the presentation, what was that brand personality we created for Bellevue? And imagine, how difficult or maybe not, it is to get the word wowza through, internal review, as people think and very often are guided by a lot of, perspectives and personalities that, are filtering things through that very clinical perspective. But here, again, we thought it was extremely important not to let the brand's hair down, but be friendly, human, and approachable. So that, hi, Eileen, wowza, things are about to get interesting. Pregnancy can lead to huge changes in your life, your mind, and of course, your body. We think Capital Region mamas need to stick together. That's why we created this email series to give you the information you need at every stage of your pregnancy on through blah, blah, blah. And so there were a number of different emails. Welcome to Bellevue. Here's what to expect, your first months. Your body is amazing. Here's how to take care of it. Again, putting all of that content out. It was really important for us, and I won't talk too much about this, both for time and just the density of it, but all the content needs to be clickable. It all needs to be truncated. It all should drop folks off either a simpler video, something else that they can read if they're interested in diving in more. That helped us in two ways. It gave us a sense of which patients are most engaged and most likely to be retained through that whole process and not at risk of going elsewhere. But it also over time helped us to understand what kind of content do people want to read the rest of, or are they skimming it, what are really, what's really interesting. So over the last couple of years, we've been able to look at the analytics and say they're not reading as much about nutrition, or they're reading more about something else through that process. Keeping that 360-degree experience. So we've reached out to them digitally, broadly. We've captured them on our site. We're starting to nurture them through those very personalized, either retargeting or those email sequences that you've seen over the last few slides, making sure the campaign was fully integrated as we bring them into the hospital tours, the signage throughout the hospital, the banner stands that you'll see there on the right, posters in waiting rooms, table tents, everything that, to reinforce that message and be very consistent. And there again, just, we know all of us collectively, and many of you have heard this before, but brands are evaluated or measured by their consistency. The more consistent a brand, the more likely you are to trust it. It's not constantly updated, it's not jumbled. And so it becomes very efficient to use a lot of the same imagery, but it also becomes very comforting. There's that old saying that the client tires of the advertising long before the consumer does. So while even going through this presentation, you'll see that same photo here represented in a lot of our materials, we think it's important to have that fully integrated. It also means you don't need to have a very deep, expensive photo library either. All right, so inside of about 10 minutes and only a few slides left, I wanted to share some of those dashboards and results. But postpartum, again, we wanted folks to have these Snapchat filters. We wanted to encourage them to share that, let us be the first to congratulate you. But while you're here, use the hashtag Bellevue Moms, that Snapchat filter. Thank you for inviting us to be part of your birth experience. Again, Bellevue delivers. So putting out, content about that. I delivered at Bellevue. We had a lot of swag and things like that that were part of that entire process. And then I'll jump over to a dashboard really quickly. And again, this could be an entire, hour-long presentation itself. But let me go into Google Chrome. With any luck, I'm sharing this dashboard and not my 401k statement. So this is a real-time 24/7 dashboard. We use sort of white label a software called Grow. We are Smith & Jones. Over it is our parent company. So we didn't outsource this, but our parent company over it is what had created this for us. And this is, again, in real time. You can see the campaign launching. January 21, and it goes up through the campaign launch in the fall of 2021. You can start to see active subscribers month over month. Here's the different subscribers, persona and source. These were our spends as I went down across. We had subscribers by paid source. Okay, so this is my point earlier about search. Google versus Facebook versus nothing from Snapchat, YouTube, whatever. And then on the left here, you'll see some different parts of those personas. We have this kind of Why Bellevue feeder campaign about getting more information. We have a birth planning campaign in terms of our ads that went out there, new mom, pregnancy persona, planning pregnancy, postpartum, all this on the left here. So as I go through this, when you look at, let's say, birth planning, most folks, all folks that came to us were pregnant as opposed to, one subscriber planning for pregnancy. In the case of new moms, pregnant, postpartum, planning for pregnancy. And it gave us an opportunity to see what were we spending against that over a 12-month period of time. How many web users, what was our cost per conversions, what were the sources of that kind of information. All of this, again, through just simple tracking codes and a simple online source allowed us to see, what was happening there. What about our, emails themselves? Fourth trimester, breastfeeding 101, all about newborns. There was some really, really good data that we were able to use to guide all of our decisions about where to spend money. We have our AdWords last month, current month, Facebook ads, year to date, real time. And again, what are we spending on these? What's our, sum of the reach? What are our clicks? What's our cost per conversion? Are we getting form fills? Where's that tracking? And the one thing I think that was really important was building in our digital team as part of that ongoing analysis and metrics. Every month, we meet at the beginning of the month, tell you what happened in the previous month, what's working, what's not working, what are we doubling down on, what's the content that becomes the most engaged, what's the media that becomes the most engaged. So going back up to this example here, where were you, Snapchat? I forget where it is. Maybe it's farther over here to the right or left. Anyway, I had something that showed we had almost no results coming in from Snapchat, and as a result, abandoned that pretty quickly. So I wanted to point out that throughout this entire journey, we had not only the email automation, but also the digital campaign. All of those metrics were evaluated to help us with optimization of content, retention, and all of that as we went through. And so inside of about 8 minutes or so left, just wanted to kind of share a few summary thoughts. So at the beginning, I mentioned that research phase. Formal, semi-formal, casual, whatever you have the resources for, but listening to what matters really helped not only shape the campaign, but making sure that it's extremely relevant. A very family-centric, patient-centric approach to everything, including wherever possible, going beyond that one-size-fits-all. We wanted to make sure we went beyond a newsletter that could speak to 5 different topics, no matter where you're at on the journey, but rather having an email that was specific to where you're at on that journey. So with those personas helped us understand what might be relevant, how we can tailor that content. And again, going just beyond, many of us think or only have the time or resources to go and build our ads through patient acquisition. But that entire journey, before, during, after, was extremely important. And I think, overall, getting comfortable with that conversational, friendly, approachable content. I think your graphic design and your, physician credibility will allow that to, maintain that clinical proficiency, that clinical credibility. You're not going to be seen as too casual, and slangy. But I think it was really important to be able to speak to folks in a way that they would easily understand, but with content if they want to take a deeper dive or if they want to kick the tires. And then finally, delivering on all of that. It's hopefully this presentation gave you a sense of that case study. What did we create? How did we create it? Certainly want to, hope it inspires you to develop campaigns like this for yourself and understand what is possible. Again, these were not deep, robust budgets. This is New York's capital region population's about 1.5 million total, and you've got to go to about 5 or 6 counties to get there. And as a subset of that, this is a hospital with 2,300 employees compared to 14,000. So there weren't a lot of deep resources, but our hope was that we could build a brand that was relevant, and over time, that would have its own set of attraction. The patient referrals would become a lot better and easier than they might on larger institutions, and really just help that overall positioning itself. So with that, I just wanted to wrap up a couple minutes early and thought I would just take a quick look and see if there's any questions for those of you joining us live on the chat, or I can thank everybody watching on demand and we can stop the video here recording. But again, for those of you that are joining us live and in person, thank you for making time for us. I hope you found this relevant and interesting. I hope it was inspiring. Hope you took some screenshots. Again, happy to share the whole slide deck with you. So if you registered for that, that'll be shared with you. And again, if you're watching this on demand, probably somewhere on the web page here, there's going to be a link to download that information. So quick question that came up in the chat. Thank you, Catherine. Was this a funnel for your pediatric practice? Really, really great question. So how does this become, sort of that leader, and how do we move folks into pediatrics? Absolutely. I can't speak to that level of detail off the cuff, but I know that even though Bellevue Women's Hospital was a freestanding, there were opportunities to, capture all of that and make those referrals into the pediatric practice itself. I can get your email from Emily, who helped us set up the webinar, and happy to sidebar with you on that or just share some information about it. I think my colleagues might be able to give you a little bit more detail on what or how we did that internally. I think that's a really important part. And while my communication here kind of spoke to the moms during different phases, this is a great question. All right, great. So now I know you have a child. So how can I then move those folks into our pediatric practice and service line as well? And that's actually a great follow-up, and hopefully we'll get invited back to do, thank you for those of you that attended, automation to help Bellevue deliver more babies. Now, how do we turn more babies into more pediatric patients? Again, and I think let me roll back up to what I said at the very beginning. This is very much the reason why we believe cancer, cardiac, and obstetrics. If you do well on those, they will have a huge halo effect to the rest of your institution's brand perception. But in this case, you'll see capturing those new moms and young families. If I have a great experience during my labor and delivery, making that transition, into my pediatric practice, as Catherine had asked, that becomes, a huge opportunity to retaining those patients and going through their entire life cycle. And as many of you know, our hospitals have been around in some cases for hundreds and hundreds of years. So, we're always challenged as marketers to think, quarterly updates, I've got the next board meeting, whatever it could be that I'm doing, I'm building out my next annual budget. But there's very much, for institutions like ours that have been around hundreds of years, it's important to play that long game. Investments in these areas, a positive impression in labor and delivery, to Catherine's point, really helps us build up pediatric practice. And now I can support your family through urgent care needs and pediatric wellness, grow alongside your family. And as the parents age, as the children have children of their own, this is what helps our hospitals be a great pillar of the community. So what a fabulous ending point there. I don't think I could say anything more inspiration than that at the end. So for everyone joining us, thank you so much. I'm glad you were here. And again, for those of you watching this on demand, and everyone, I hope you found some value in this. So thank you.